What's going on, everyone? The Bad Habits, aka TBH here. Welcome to Old Habits Die Hard. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Today's episode is obviously dedicated to El Camino. This movie was probably the most anticipated film of 2019 for me. Now, to be fair, I know that's considered blasphemy, considering, hey, that's the same year Endgame came out. Although it was a close match, El Camino just inched it, okay? Breaking Bad is my favorite anything, okay? I'm not going to say series because to me it's more than that. It has influenced so many different parts of my life. I didn't grow up to become a meth dealer, at least as of yet. Let me find some wood to knock on. Hey, what not to do is a very important part of the journey. So, when this was announced and I saw that trailer, I was fully in. To be fair, this movie came out in 2019, almost 5 years ago. As of this recording, we're a little early, to be fair. Usually Old Habits Die Hard. Normally it's around the anniversary. But I couldn't wait. Let me just say this before we really get started. Sure, time has passed. These people have aged, okay? Aaron Paul, a.k.a. Jesse Pinkman, he was too old to play Jesse to begin with. He was almost 30 when the show premiered. So, yeah. It is what it is. If I'm not mistaken, the year this release, he turned 40. So, yeah, they might refer to him as kid. And then you have that Tobey Maguire moment.
He's just a kid. No older than my son.
God damn, do these actors just fucking slip right back into these roles? And what the fuck was this? That slip somehow? With that being said, let's get into the plot here. So, I'm using good old Wikipedia per usual. Part of the Breaking Bad franchise, it serves as a sequel and an epilogue to the television series Breaking Bad. It continues the story of Jesse Pinkman, who partnered with his former teacher Walter White throughout the series to build a crystal meth empire based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's no way I could ever condense Breaking Bad into just one paragraph, so I'm not going to bother. I hope you've seen the series because if you have, there's so many fucking payoffs in the film. This is one of those films where it didn't even really feel like necessarily fan service. It felt like, necessary answers. In case you don't remember how the series ended or maybe you've never seen it, Jesse was, long story short, this man was treated like an animal. I mean, this man was, chained up, and he lived in a cage, and when he wasn't in a cage, he was making meth for a bunch of neo-Nazis. He had it rough, long story short. So the very final episode, Walter White liberates him after putting him in the position to begin with. That's a whole other thing. We don't have time for it. This is not a Breaking Bad video. Once he's liberated, he takes off in Todd's El Camino and bashes through a fence. That's the last we see of him. This film is dedicated to answering the simple question of what's next for Jesse Pinkman. So this one begins with Jesse and Mike Ehrmantraut having a little conversation by a pond. So canonically speaking, that would mean it's, in the final season somewhere. And at that point, during that intro, you may not know it. I'm not going to spoil it as of right now. We'll get into it later. But during that scene, it's really important because just a tiny little seed is planted. Classic Breaking Bad style. We'll pay it off later. Speaking of, Breaking Bad, signature moments and whatnot, the transitions are back in full effect, y'all, okay? For those who don't know, this series is, on a technical level, goddamn amazing. In the series, Jesse has two friends, Badger and Skinny Pete, who are, there's something.
I got bitch. Damn.
It's always nice to get a final, farewell moment. And, shout out to Badger, but specifically, I want to shout out Skinny Pete, y'all. I never would have thought this character is this fucking deep. He really just gets you one like Skinny Pete, for real. I never thought I'd say that ever in my fucking life. Forgive me, y'all. I love this shit, so my bias is showing. If I'm being honest with you, I think Aaron Paul should have got an Oscar nom for this one. I really do. It's amazing to see where this character starts off, from early episode 1, and then just by the end of this film, he's unrecognizable. And I feel like everyone who showed up for this film, outside of Better Call Saul, which was still going on, but this felt like everyone knew this was it, So put everything you got, whatever's left of these characters, channel that, and just fucking perform. And it shows. Insert Todd, played by Jesse Plemons. This is the goddamn best version of Todd we ever get. Not physically. Let me just throw that in there. Yeah, just to be clear, not fat shaming here. But based on the way they reintroduce Todd, the way they kind of just frame every shot, you don't get all of him just yet. They knew that was going to be a jarring transition. But his performance as Todd, it's a continuation of what we got in that last season of the series. But it's also really, really, really different. And although he's sort of just used as a bit of a base layout for Jesse's journey, he is vital to this film. Okay, let me try to do a con here. I've been fanboying for a little too long. So, I will say, overall, if you haven't seen the series, this film is not the most accessible. They could have led the way a little bit better, if I'm being honest with you. It's not done horribly, but they could have done a little better. That's all. Breaking Bad is really dense, and, there's payoffs that, start in season 1 that don't come back for 4 other seasons. I really forgot how engaging this film was. During the rewatch, I was kind of struggling for cons, if you can't already fucking tell. There's a sequence in there where Jesse is just like a fucking rat in a fucking maze. He's in there vigorously just tossing his shit out of Todd's apartment. You didn't think I was gonna say salad there, right? You want some soup, bitch? I'm not kidding though. There were times I had to remind myself to breathe because it's so goddamn tense. I was in the shit with Jesse on this journey, okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let me do a little catch up with the story here. So after we reconvene with Skinny Pete and Badger, that's when Jesse heads to Todd's apartment to find his secret stash of money. How does Jesse know where Todd lives? Well, that's where the flashback comes in. Todd brought Jesse over to his apartment to help him clean up a body. Long story short, Todd ends up killing his maid because his maid found the stash of money. And that's why Jesse is now tossing around the apartment, just scavenging through everything, trying to find it. Speaking of the dead body, the poor woman, she did not deserve that. I wish I didn't laugh my ass off when they dropped that goddamn body off the ledge. I'm sorry, it's done in a comical way. Fucking, she did not deserve that, okay? And then we just fucking transition to Todd having the time of his life on the highway. God damn, man. Todd is... he's really trying to steal the MVP award. I previously actually just gave that to Skinny Pete. Skinny Pete was the biggest twist and turn in this film at that point. But man, I don't know. I might have to give it to Todd. He is just stealing every fucking scene. Just when this motherfucker finds the stash, insert our antagonists of the film. Coke-eyed Neil and fucking David from The Last of Us. So after this unknown amount of hours, he just as he's giving up, he's bashing his head against the fridge. Boom. Then he finds it. What follows from that is a really tense, just standoff between Jesse and these two motherfuckers. They show up wearing police jackets, but very quickly they show all their cards, and that's when we find out these motherfuckers are shady. I was really impressed with the growth of Jesse in this scene. Neil, coke guy, whatever, he has a gun to his fucking face, and he's just not budging, man. He's still just grabbing money. Like, whatever, bitch, do it. Neil runs a welding company. He's shady as fuck. He's the one who designs the harness that kept Jesse a prisoner. He's probably the one who designed the cage as well. I mean, this man is fucking intertwined with Jesse's haunted, tortured past. So that's where we go to the infamous vacuum store cleaner guy, Ed, played by Robert Forster, who I really want to say he died the day this film was released. R.I.P. to a real one. You wouldn't be able to tell from his performance that he was sick, because the man was a true professional. It's tough. I would say, honestly, I said Aaron Paul could have got a, Best Actor nomination. Robert Forster could have got Best Supporting Actor. That's just my opinion. He isn't fucking around. He's taking everything Jesse throws at him. He's just one-liner. Great performance overall. He's very vital to the story because, we'll get back into it later. But, we're not done with him just yet. Also wanted to give a shout out to Jesse's parents. In the series, I wasn't a fan of them at all. I'll be honest with you. He actually apologizes, lets them know that, it's not their fault that he's the way he is or the way things turn out. He tries to ease their guilt, which, greatly appreciated. They get conned one final time. Jesse arranges a meetup for them so he can turn himself in, but it's just a ruse so he can sneak in and steal a pistol for the final act. Ooh, speaking of that, he called them on his, handy dandy flip phone that Skinny Pete gave him. Once again, Skinny Pete's a real one, but classic Breaking Bad fashion. They take out that battery and they just snap the phone. It always bugged me because it's just like, you need to do more than that if you want to truly dispose of that. Like, yeah, that's a start, but that's not enough. I mean, the battery part's fucking easy. We can get a new battery, and then we'll just load the data from the cracked flip phone. Whatever. That's a con I've always had. It's just... Oh, problems are solved. Now, why did Jesse get a gun? So he is $1,800 short of the $250,000 he needs to disappear. That's why he went to meet up with Ed at the vacuum store, but he's short. So he politely meets up with the psychos and just asks for the money. Unfortunately, Kokai, he doesn't like that very much, so it doesn't go as smoothly. This leads to a goddamn literal fucking Western drawl. It's a standoff between Kokai and Jesse. It's so fucking cool. When I was reading about the film, apparently that's what Vince Gilligan wanted to do with the series. It was always a Western, to be fair. And the duel is fucking tense. I love that there's a couple guys on the sideline, including fucking David and like 3 other dudes. One of them's holding a fucking Coke tray the entire time. Fucking drop it, dude. It's a fucking gunfight about to happen. What are you doing? Jesse wins the gunfight. He outsmarted Neil, which probably wasn't hard to do after a long night of fucking partying. But yeah, no, Jesse comes out on top. I will say there's a con immediately after he kills Neil, though, because that's when David goes for his gun, and Jesse and him have a horrible gunfight, okay? And I'm not saying horrible like it ends tragically. Well, I guess it does for one person. It's horrible. I'm sorry. It's a small room. They're right in front of each other. It's just like boom, boom, dead. That's how it should have been. Whatever. Jesse wins that gunfight, and then he destroys the welding company that Neil owned. It's very liberating and fitting as well. And then before we get to wrap up Jesse's final adventure into Alaska, yes, before we get there, we have a nice little Walter White flashback. Now, this is before Walter White becomes Heisenberg, at least truly within. It's pre-goatee, before he dressed in all black or whatever, the fucking devil that he became. It's just this little inkling of hope there. And it's also really sad, too. Because at that point, Walter's about 50. He just got cancer diagnosis. He has a daughter on the way, a handicapped son. Marriage is the shit. He's just basically like, look, kid. Puts his hand on his shoulder. Because you're a young kid. You're doing this at a really young age. And I'm proud of you. I wish I could have done it as young as you. In reality, they're like 2 days apart. I will say that diner scene is probably the most levity in the film. It's full of a bunch of setups and callbacks as well. It's just nice to have those two on screen together, and for seemingly one last time.
Yeah, bitch.
We might get little appearances like that here and there, for the Super Bowl or whatever, but this one felt like the swan song, if you will. And then we cut to Jesse being smuggled by Ed, who's now in Alaska, has a whole new life ahead of him, new name, new everything. At that point, it's he's made his exodus, and we're just ready to turn over a new page. So at this point, Ed and Jesse prepare to say their, farewells, goodbyes. Jesse hands a letter to Ed for Brock. I'm assuming it's confessing, and trying to say he's sorry, trying to make amends, or at least give him some answers as to why his mother disappeared. That's a whole other story. Jesse dated this girl, Andrea, who has a son named Brock, obviously. Unfortunately, she gets killed because she's being used as leverage for Jesse to continue to cook for the fucking neo-Nazis. It's a whole other thing. But I really appreciate that they also want to, not make amends, but at least close that loop for that plot line. It was needed. And right before the movie ends, we get a few moments of Jesse driving. He has these quick flashes of, him and Jane in the car together. It's goddamn sweet. He recalls some advice she gave him, about, how it's cool to say I just go where the wind takes me or wherever life has taken me. She offers her own unique perspective on that. I'll just say that. Can I be honest, though? I thought it was weird that, in my opinion, it sort of played up that Jane is his true love. I'll be honest, I always thought it was Andrea in the end. I know it ends up tragically for both of them. Let's just say Andrea was killed, Jane died. If you know, I don't want to. I don't know how to quite say it, and I don't want to, hurt anyone who's been through similar situations. So, but yeah, and that right there is El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. Overall, this film is, like I said earlier, it's filled with callbacks, and it gives a lot of answers and closures to things that we never got with the series finale. So I really appreciate this film. I kind of lingered between a really high added to the collection or really low new religion. As of right now, I'm going to say add it to the collection. It's absolutely worth your time. Even if you're not a Breaking Bad fan, I'm sure there's something you could just take from it. It's still tense, you know. You may not get everything, and it may not be the most accessible, but there's a lot going on in this film. I want to rewatch it again. I ended up buying a UK import. You know, I was worried when I was watching this that, I might develop an accent, Like, no, I don't want to. Obviously, it didn't go down like that. I'm rambling too much. Thank you so much for watching. I'm the Bad Habits, a.k.a. TBH, y'all. And I'm signing out. Deuces.